Listen with coolness and courage. What I'm about to say isn't for those who want a nice phrase, to take 10 deep breaths and go back to their old lives. It's for those who are tired of asking the world for signs like a beggar asking for change at a closed door. You're not waiting for money, you're waiting for permission. And permission is almost always the polite name for fear. The visible life is a delayed mirror. It doesn't decide, it confirms. It doesn't initiate, it responds. What you call circumstance is the trail of the state you sustained long enough to become the scenery. When you understand this, something happens instantly. Not because the world changes in a second, but because the command changes in a second. And the world, being a mirror, obeys the command. The scary part here isn't superstition, it's simple. If you've adopted lack, confusion, and powerlessness as your identity, the world had to agree. If you adopt wealth, direction, and abundance as your identity, the world will also have to agree. The question isn't whether it works. The question is whether you have the discipline not to backtrack when appearances provoke you with delay, with noise, and with old doubts. I'm going to give you 5 principles. These aren't ideas to collect. They are keys to turn the lock from the inside. And when you turn the lock from the inside, the door outside opens at the right time in the right way. If you came for money in 7 days, understand this as a commander, not a curious bystander. 7 days isn't a spell, it's calibration. 7 days is enough for you to prove to yourself that you can sustain a state without kneeling to your balance, to fear, to the news, to comparison, and to talk of defeat. The first principle is this: stop negotiating with reality. Most people pursue wealth like someone trying to convince a guard to open a gate. They plead, "When I see an opportunity, I'll believe. When I receive a deposit, I'll relax. When I pay off my debts, I'll start feeling free." This is the wrong order. You're telling the mirror, "You smile first and then I'll smile." The mirror doesn't work that way. Your life isn't the engine, it's the dashboard. The engine is the internal state you inhabit with constancy. Do you want wealth? Then assume right now the state of someone who already has it. And don't confuse state with ostentation. State isn't about showing off. State is about being. State is an internal climate. It's the place from which you think, choose, react, and walk. It's your invisible posture. A man can have little in his pocket and walk with the serenity of someone who knows the flow is in his favor. A woman can have bills to pay and still breathe like someone already living the version of life where everything is resolved calmly. The world doesn't respond to your performance. It responds to your inner place. How do you do this practically? You change the question. Stop asking, "How will I achieve it?" and start asking, "Who am I when I've already achieved it?" When you feel who you are in the after, you bring that after into the now, and then the now begins to choose as the after would have chosen. You send different messages. You position yourself differently. You respect yourself differently. You see doors that didn't even seem like doors before. Life is full of opportunities, but most people go through their day like someone crossing a street looking at the ground. They don't see what's above because they are hypnotized by what's missing. Learn to read signs symbolically. When a bill is due, it's not a decree. It's an identity test. It asks you, are you a hostage to time and panic, or are you the cause? If you react with despair, you confirm the role of hostage. If you react with firmness, breathing and decreeing internally, I am someone for whom money is normal, you are rewriting the law that governs your world. When someone talks about a crisis, it's not a prophecy, it's noise. When the news shouts lack, it's not truth, it's programming. You weren't born to be programmed, you were born to command. This is where it happens instantly reveals itself. The moment you stop asking circumstance for permission, the moment you stop saying one day and say, I inhabit now. The moment you decide that your center will no longer be hijacked by external numbers. You don't need to see proof to become someone new. You become someone new, and out of coherence, the proof arrives. Not because the world loves you, because the world obeys you. Now, before moving to the second principle, understand this. Decision without method turns into enthusiasm and dies. If you want an organized path to truly apply this, there is material in the pinned comment that puts these practices in order. with simple exercises to train the mind and prevent you from reverting to your old automatic patterns. It teaches how to make the mental scene more real using senses and details, and how to deal with distractions without fighting them using breathing, redirection, and consistency. It's a practical way to deepen the practice and make what you're hearing become routine, not just intention. The second principle is this: you don't attract what you desire, you attract what you sustain. Desire is easy, sustaining is rare. Everyone wants a better life. Few can bear to be the person already living that life, and here's the difference. The rich person isn't rich because they saw money. They see money because they already live in the state where money is expected. They are not surprised by abundance. They consider it normal. Your normal decides what enters. If money for you is an exception, it will behave like an exception. It appears and disappears, arrives and escapes, because your identity treats it as a visitor. Test this now with something simple, so your mind doesn't use resistance as an excuse. Choose a small but real outcome: a reply, a sale, an invitation, a payment, an idea that becomes income. Close your eyes and create a short scene, like a stamp. You looking at your phone and seeing a confirmation. You hearing the notification sound. You feeling your shoulders relax. And above all, you feeling this is common. Not hysterical euphoria. Normalcy. Normalcy is the seal of the adopted state. When you put normalcy onto desire, you remove the poison of desperation. The old mind will try to trick you with haste. If it doesn't show up soon, it's not working. That's the mind of control. It wants to pull up the seed to see if it has grown. It wants to open the oven before it's ready. It wants to check the statement every minute and call it verification, when it's just fear in the guise of prudence. Sustaining a state means remaining firm even when the mirror is still delayed. And to sustain, you need coherence, not anxiety. Coherence requires alignment, and alignment isn't poetry, it's a tripod. Thought, emotion, and action need to walk together, because if one leg is missing, everything falls. Thought is the map, emotion is the engine, action is the steering wheel. When you think I am prosperous, feel panic, and act like someone hiding, you send mixed signals and the world responds with confusion. If you want a clear response, be clear inside, not with shouts, but with coherence. The third principle is this: wealth is identity, not an event. Most people await an event. When I win, I'll change. Those who understand the law do the opposite. I change, therefore I win. Identity isn't a label, it's a way of breathing, of talking to yourself, of moving through time. Identity is what you do when no one is watching. It's your response to delay. It's your posture in the face of silence. It's how you decide after a no. If you collapse with a no, your identity is still that of a beggar. If you readjust and continue, your identity is already that of a cause. Want to know if you've adopted the state? Observe your body when you think about money. The body is honest. If your chest tightens, if your stomach clenches, if your jaw hardens, you are in a state of threat. And as long as money means threat, it will come and go like someone visiting a house where they are not welcome. You need to train your body to recognize abundance as security, not as danger. How do you train it? Through repeated exposure to the right scene, with the right emotion. It's not about forcing a belief. It's about habituating the system to a new normality. Do this simply and sensorially. The more sensory it is, the more the subconscious registers it as instruction. Use sight, sound, touch, smell, and even taste when it makes sense. And when the mind says this is imagination, you reply, exactly, and that's where the visible is born. Then you return to the scene. If a random thought arises, don't fight it. Ignore it without struggle and return. If a thought like, what if I fail, arises, replace it with, what if I succeed, and return to the inner place of victory. You are training command, not arguing with noise. The fourth principle is this: you need internal proof, not external guarantees. The world will try to buy you with urgency. It will say, if you don't solve this now, it's over. If you don't have it today, you've failed. This is the old state trying to survive. Old states are habits, and habits don't die with a nice thought. Habits die when you refuse to feed them. So when urgency strikes, respond with a simple ritual. Pause. 3 slow breaths. Return to your body. Return to command. Remember the short scene from the day and remember the minimal action of the day. Do the action and move on. This isn't coldness, it's authority. Despair always wants to rush you because haste robs clarity. You will not be robbed. Here's a secret. Gratitude and detachment aren't adornments. Gratitude is recognizing that flow already exists and that changes your frequency from lack to abundance. Detachment is releasing the throat of desire. When you squeeze, you create resistance. When you release, you create space. Detachment isn't giving up. It's stopping the clock watching. It's doing what needs to be done and letting the world rearrange the pieces without your anxiety getting in the way. You are not trying to control the path. You are sustaining the state that creates the path and reduce the noise. There are people who live like emotional garbage collectors. They gather complaints, bad news, conversations of defeat, and then try to visualize prosperity like someone trying to light a candle in a hurricane. Close the windows when the hurricane enters. Not to escape the world, but to protect your focus. Focus is directed energy, and directed energy is command. Use tools to keep the state alive. A vision board, physical or digital, with a few clear images, keeps your mind pointed toward what matters and helps align your actions with your desires. Look at it for a minute and feel the right emotion. It's not idolatry, it's direction and right. Writing in the present tense as if it were already real implants the story on a deeper level, like signing a contract with yourself. Most people write, "I want," and then live, "I don't have." You will write, "I live," and you will begin to act like someone who lives. The 5th principle is this: aligned action is the physical arm of the state. There are people who use imagination as an excuse to stay still. That's laziness in disguise. True state creates movement. Not frenetic movement, but inspired movement. Imagination is the plan. Action is the concrete. And concrete doesn't appear without a hand. Therefore, in 7 days you make the pact. Short scene and small action every day. 5 to 10 minutes a day is an ideal start to train the mind and fit into any routine. Small action is enough to show your own internal system that you are serious. Small action, repeated, becomes trajectory. A resume sent, a quote requested, an ad posted, a service offered, a study completed, a conversation initiated, a debt renegotiated, a conscious expense cut. This is the state gaining form. Let me show you how identity pulls paths with 2 examples. A woman made sweets at home and said she wanted more money. She wanted it, but she was ashamed to show her work. She wanted to be paid without being seen. This is an identity of lack, wanting fruit without planting exposure. She adopted another internal phrase: "My work has value and it's safe to be paid." Every day she did the short scene of orders arriving, and on the same day, a small action. Post a photo, reply firmly, set a price without apologizing, deliver with excellence. In a short time, it wasn't just the money that changed, it was her posture, and it's the posture that draws money. Another man wanted to increase his income and lived waiting for the big idea. He jumped from video to video like a starving person jumping from plate to plate. This is a state of scarcity, an inability to sustain focus. He did the opposite. He chose a single skill to improve for 7 days, 20 minutes a day. At the same time, he visualized the scene of a client thanking him and paying easily. He didn't wait for a miracle. He created coherence. The opportunity that came was small, but he saw it, because now he was in the right state to recognize and act. Perhaps you'll say, "But I have old blockages." Of course you do. There are beliefs that have become invisible walls. Money is hard. To earn, I must suffer. It's not for me. If you visualize abundance and deep down think you don't deserve it, you create conflict and stall movement. So you don't run from the belief, you face it. Ask, what is the but that appears when I think about wealth? That but is the leash. Write it down. Recognize it. And instead of arguing with it, replace it with a new assumption sustained by daily practice. You are not trying to convince fear, you are training command. In the first 2 days, the old state usually shouts louder because it perceives it's losing its throne. It tries to show you proof to the contrary, a delay, a cold response, an unexpected expense. Don't be fooled. This isn't the world punishing you, it's the habit's last performance. On the third and fourth days, something changes. You react less, you return to command faster, you notice your own thoughts before they dominate you. And from the fifth to the seventh day, you begin to notice movements that previously went unnoticed. Contacts, ideas, invitations, small opportunities, useful coincidences. You don't call it luck, you call it alignment. And when the temptation arises to tell everyone, to ask for approval, to seek someone to say it will work out, hold back. Power is silent. True state doesn't need an audience. You are not trying to convince anyone. You are training your own mind to obey. The world is an echo, you are the voice. And when the voice is firm, the echo has no choice. And if you're thinking, but I need a sign to believe, understand this. The sign you're looking for is internal. It's the moment you realize you can choose your state even with a bill overdue, even with a silent phone, even with someone doubting you. That is power. Most people only feel good when the world allows it. That's why they live as hostages. You will feel good because you decided. And when the world realizes you are no longer negotiating, it begins to organize itself around your decision. Don't underestimate the small movements that emerge when your state changes. A conversation you would have avoided. A yes, you finally say. An idea that pops up in the shower and you write it down instead of forgetting it. An invitation that appears and you accept without making excuses. An annoyance that you use as fuel, not as drama. Wealth often arrives as a discrete path that requires presence. If you are absent, you won't see it. If you are present, you will recognize it. And here's a rule for your 7 days. Don't use the practice as a burden. Use it as training. You don't go to the gym once and yell at the mirror because you haven't transformed into someone else. You train, repeat, adjust, and the body obeys. The mind is the same. When you practice 5 to 10 minutes consistently, you are watering a plant. A little each day makes it grow strong. You are watering the state, and the watered state generates better choices, and better choices generate better results. This is mechanical. This is law. If you want a final example, imagine a man who always said, "Money escapes me." He repeated it like a mantra, and then was surprised that everything escaped him. When he changed it to, "Money is stable in my life," he didn't just wait for the sky to fall into his lap. He organized what he had, stopped impulse buying, asked for a raise firmly, offered a service he knew how to do, and sustained the state. The world responded because he stopped contradicting his own words with his own life. This is law. What you sustain internally governs what you live externally. I'll give you one last image to seal this. Imagine that your reality is a row of printers. Each repeated thought is a file sent. Each emotion is the ink. Each action is the print button. If you send the file of lack and complain about the print, you're playing with your own life. Change the file. Change the ink. Press the button. And most importantly, stop staring at the empty tray in despair. The printer works at its own pace. Your job is to keep the command clean, not to watch the tray. From now on, stop begging for external changes. Stop asking circumstance for permission. Command silently and with certainty that your reality obey the state you have chosen to inhabit. When doubt comes, treat it as noise. When delay comes, treat it as a test. When fear comes, treat it as an old habit trying to pull you back. You don't go back, you sustain, you execute, you become, you don't beg, you decide. And sustained decision becomes destiny. And if you want to solidify this with a practical step, with a simple routine and tools that will keep you firm when your mind tries to sabotage, the material in the pinned comment was made precisely to transform this decision into daily practice. Sensory visualization techniques, brief consistency of a few minutes, and tools like a vision board and present tense writing to keep the state alive and actions aligned. Use it, practice it for 7 days with discipline, and observe how the world begins to respond with paths, ideas, and opportunities compatible with the state you have decided to sustain. Feel where their consciousness resides. They don't try to change the scenery. They change the mind that projects it, because they know that the world is merely the mirror that reveals the invisible face of their being. Awakening is painful only for the ego, that mask which fears losing control. But what is truly lost is not control, but the illusion. When one awakens, they understand that there is no outside separate from an inside. What they see as distant, they themselves generated. What they call destiny, they themselves wrote. Then the first light emerges, the awareness that nothing external can be changed without the internal changing first. It is at this moment that the journey begins, not towards a new world, but towards the correct perception of the world that has always been there. The awakening of consciousness is the return to the Father's house, to the original state of being, where everything is possible and nothing is out of reach. And when this remembrance is ignited, reality, obedient, begins to bend before the one who has finally recalled, I and the Father are one. In the first phase of awakening, an individual lives completely identified with the body and the world of forms. They believe themselves to be merely a limited individual, subject to the laws of chance, circumstances, and matter. Everything that happens outside of them seems to have an independent cause: an unfair boss, a corrupt government, an unstable economy, a difficult childhood. They live believing that power lies externally, and therefore try in vain to control everything around them. When something goes wrong, they rebel, seek blame, or surrender to resignation. When something goes right, they swell with pride, convinced that it was luck or effort that favored them. This state is the deep sleep of consciousness, the complete forgetting of one's own divine origin. The person in this phase is a mirror that only reflects what others project. They react, they do not create. Their mind is like an open field where any seed, good or bad, finds fertile ground. The opinions of others shape their beliefs, and their beliefs shape their destiny. They do not realize they are the invisible author of every experience. They believe suffering comes from outside, without understanding that it is merely the harvest of a thought silently sustained. Everything they fear, they invite. Everything they resist, they reinforce. Everything they ignore repeats itself. This stage is necessary, for it is in it that the human being begins to feel the weight of separation. The existential void, the feeling that life is merely a sequence of repeating days, is the first sign that something within wants to awaken. They feel there is more, but they don't yet know what it is. They observe the success of others with envy or admiration, without realizing that they are merely witnessing different states of consciousness in action. They pray to a distant God, implore for miracles, without knowing that the very act of asking reinforces the idea that they do not have. And what one believes they do not have, they can never receive. In this phase, an individual lives in constant conflict, for their mind is divided between desire and doubt. They want to change the world, but they do not change themselves. They want prosperity, but they hold thoughts of lack. They want love, but they vibrate with rejection. They want peace, but they feed in a war. The world obedient merely reflects what they are. No external master can awaken them as long as they insist on blaming the scenery. But slowly, something begins to change. They grow tired of fighting against appearances. They grow tired of begging for attention, for luck, for answers. This weariness is the beginning of faith, because only when an individual is exhausted by the visible world do they begin to look within. And there, in the silent depths of their own imagination, they will find the seed of what they always sought outside: the power to create, the power to be, the power to remember that everything begins and ends in their own consciousness. In the second phase, something begins to stir within an individual, a subtle discomfort, a restlessness that no external achievement can silence. They feel there is something wrong with living solely by reacting to events. Even when they achieve what they so desired, the pleasure is short-lived, and emptiness soon follows. It is as if the world, once colorful and solid, begins to dissolve in their hands. It is the silent call of consciousness, inviting them to look within. This discomfort is the first indication that the spirit has begun to awaken. They try to understand what is happening. They seek new beliefs, new religions, new methods. They read books, follow gurus, change cities, change their appearance, but they still look for the answer outside themselves. It is the beginning of a spiritual search, but still confused because it originates from the same fundamental error, the belief that there is something to be achieved. They want to find the truth, but they do not realize it already dwells within them. They want to reach the light, but they are still chasing shadows. Thus, they begin to alternate between moments of faith and moments of doubt, between hope and fear, between belief in the invisible and the need for immediate proof. In this phase, life begins to become a clearer mirror. Circumstances seem to repeat themselves, as if wanting to teach something. Different people bring the same conflicts. Old situations return with a new face, but the same essence. It is the law operating with precision, revealing to the individual the states of consciousness they insist on sustaining. They still don't understand, but they begin to suspect that an invisible order guides everything, a perfect correspondence between what they feel and what they see. And then one day something happens. They realize that when they change their internal attitude, the world responds. Perhaps a problem that seemed impossible resolves itself when they decide to trust. Perhaps a person changes their behavior without them saying a word. This moment is small, but it is the beginning of real faith. For the first time, they glimpse that power is not in circumstances, but in the internal state. This perception disturbs them and at the same time frees them. Because if it's true that they create everything, then there's no one left to blame. But also, there is nothing left to fear. The individual who reaches this phase feels caught between two worlds. Part of them still wants to fight and control, but another part begins to surrender to the wisdom of the invisible. They realize that external things are not causes, but consequences. They understand that reality is malleable, obedient, alive, and that it responds to their inner tone. It is the beginning of true spiritual responsibility. Now they can no longer say life is unfair, for they begin to see that life merely reveals perfectly the state they have chosen to inhabit. This is the beginning of remembering who they truly are. In the third phase, the individual finally discovers the law. They realize that everything they feel and imagine with conviction takes form in the visible world. This revelation dazzles them. They begin to test, to experiment, and they perceive that in fact what they hold in consciousness manifests with mathematical precision. It is as if they have found the lost key to the universe. For the first time, they understand that they are not a victim of circumstances, but their author. This is the moment when one realizes there is a direct correspondence between the invisible and the visible, between the inner state and the outer result. At first, they use this power innocently and even selfishly. They seek to solve immediate problems, conquer what they desire, impress others. They try to manipulate the law without yet understanding that there is nothing to manipulate, only something to understand. They imagine that power serves to obtain things when in reality, power is to be what one desires. The awakened individual at this stage experiences a mix of fascination and fear. Fascination for realizing that everything is possible, and fear because they begin to understand that they are also responsible for everything. What they previously attributed to destiny, they now recognize as their own creation. But even in this initial understanding, the old habit of looking outward still dominates them. They create consciously for some time, but soon return to doubt. When the manifestation doesn't happen quickly, they despair and think the law has failed. They don't realize that it was they who departed from the desired state. The individual in this phase still believes that doing is more important than being. They still think they need to force the invisible to act, without understanding that the invisible is always responding to what they are. Life, like a patient teacher, continues to show them the exact reflection of their inner vibration. Everything they sustain in feeling, even unconsciously, reveals itself before them. And then they begin to realize that the true use of the law is not in changing the world, but in changing the state of consciousness from which the world is born. They discover that it is not thought that creates but sustained feeling. They learn that to imagine is to live, and to and that the external world is merely the echo of the internal world. When this perception takes hold, the individual begins to use power with greater wisdom. They understand that there is no need to fight against anything, only to assume the desired state, and remain in it until the invisible becomes visible. They begin to understand that there are no miracles, only laws being applied with consciousness. And at this point, they take the first step towards mastery. The understanding that everything they see, experience, and touch is merely the materialization of what they dare to feel as true within themselves. In the fourth phase, the individual awakens to the truth that they are not the character living the experiences, but the consciousness that creates them. They begin to see the world with new eyes, no longer as something to be fought against, but as an exact mirror of their inner being. People, circumstances, places, everything comes to be recognized as reflections of states of consciousness. They understand that the other is not an enemy nor a coincidence, but an aspect of themselves in expression. At this moment, the individual stops judging. They no longer feel the need to defend their position or justify their actions, because they understand that the exterior is neutral and only takes form according to the meaning they themselves attribute to it. This is the phase of supreme responsibility. The individual realizes that if everything is a projection of their mind, there is nothing outside their control, but also no one left to blame. They become the conscious creator. They do not react to evil, because they know that reacting is confirming the state that generated it. They do not fear scarcity, because they recognize that abundance is an inner vibration. They do not seek love, because they understand that love is not attracted, it is being. Upon understanding this, the individual begins to walk in silence. They observe, feel, and create deliberately. Their words become rare, but each one carries the weight of awakened consciousness. In this phase, the world loses its power to intimidate. Crises, offenses, losses, everything transforms into symbols of an internal process. The awakened individual understands that the universe is pedagogical, not punitive. Every challenge is a mirror revealing a belief that needs to be transcended. They stop asking for problems to disappear and begin to ask, "What is this situation showing me about myself?" Pain ceases to be a punishment and becomes a silent teacher, and then a serenity is born that nothing can shake. Even in the face of apparent disorder, the individual remains at peace, because now they know that the scenery is merely the surface of something deeper. They realize that they can shape their reality not through effort, but through permanence in a state of being. The world begins to respond with obedience and precision, like a crystal-clear reflection. The separation between the visible and the invisible begins to dissolve, and the individual understands that time is merely a mirror of their own inner rhythm. Here they are no longer a student of the law. They are the law itself in expression. They live with the tranquil certainty that the invisible is the real substance, and that the visible is merely the shadow that follows it. Fear dies, doubt silences, and the individual finally understands. Everything they see out there is themselves at different levels of consciousness. Creation is not happening. It has already happened. What they call the future is merely the present that has not yet been perceived. In the fifth and final phase, the individual awakens completely to unity. They recognize not as a concept, but as a living experience, that all that exists is the I am itself manifested in infinite forms. There is no longer a difference between creator and creation, between thought and thing, between inside and outside. They become the one who lives in perfect harmony with the law because they no longer try to use it. They are the law itself in action. Nothing is lacking for them because they understand that everything already is. Nothing threatens them because they realize that nothing exists outside their consciousness. In this state, the individual abandons effort and seeking. They do not ask, do not implore, do not doubt. They simply know. This phase is the return to the origin, to the point from which everything always departed, the inner silence where the I am reigns absolute. Here the individual no longer identifies with the character, with the name or with the story they live. They observe life unfolding as an ordered dance. knowing that every movement is perfect because it springs from the singular consciousness. They live in the world, but the world no longer lives in them. They are no longer affected by appearances because they recognize in them only the reflection of an indivisible unity. Everything that happens, happens in them and through them. When the individual reaches this point, they understand the true meaning of the word faith, the complete absence of resistance. They no longer need to believe in something, for they already inhabit certainty. They do not need to see to trust, for they already understand that seeing is merely the result of having assumed the state. Time ceases to be an obstacle, and waiting becomes irrelevant, because they feel with every breath that everything is already consummated. They speak little, and when they speak, their words are decrees. They act little, but every gesture is full of power. Their presence, even in silence, transforms environments because it carries the vibration of that which is one with the source. The awakened individual in this phase does not seek to change the world. They contemplate it as an expression of divine love in motion. They know that every shadow exists only to reveal the light. They understand that duality is an illusion, and that every opposite reconciles in the I Am. They look at good and evil, at gain and loss, and see only different aspects of the same whole. They live in profound gratitude, because they recognize that every moment is an opportunity to express being. And so, the individual concludes the cycle of awakening. They have returned to the Father's house, not as a servant, but as a conscious heir. Now they create in silence, live in peace, and manifest with naturalness. Because what they once sought outside, power, love, abundance, the answer, they discovered within. And upon discovering it, they understood that there was never distance, never waiting, never absence. Everything always was them, always was in them, and always will be. Now that you understand the 5 phases of awakening, also understand that nothing you see is random. Everything that surrounds you is an accurate portrait of the state you currently inhabit. The world is the mirror of your consciousness, and it changes when you change. Therefore, no longer seek to fix the reflection. Turn towards the light that projects it. As long as one believes that the cause is external, they will live trapped in the cycle of hope and fear. But the one who assumes the cause within themselves becomes the master of their destiny, for they know that the universe silently obeys their inner vibration. Stop, then, begging for signs, for luck, or for favorable circumstances. There is no external force capable of contradicting a state assumed with conviction. What you accept as true within you, sooner or later, the world will confirm before your eyes. The invisible does not fail. Imagination, when sustained in faith and feeling, is the substance of reality. The awakened individual does not ask, they declare. They do not doubt, they know. They do not wait, they assume. And it is this inner steadfastness that moves mountains, alters destinies, and transforms the impossible into the inevitable. True prayer is not a request, it is a recognition. When you say, I am, you are invoking the creative power of the universe. Everything you place after those words is an order to the invisible, and the invisible always obeys. If you say, I am weak, life will confirm your weakness. If you say, I am abundant, it will bow to your wealth. If you say, I am love, the entire world will become a mirror of that love. Therefore, speak with wisdom, think with reverence, feel with purpose. You are the creative center of everything you experience. Life does not happen to you, it obeys you. So rise not as a beggar who pleads for a miracle, but as the creator who awakens and commands. In silence, assume the desired state. Live as if it were already real. Act with the serenity of one who knows that the invisible is already in motion. And when the world finally reflects your new state, you will understand the secret few dare to live. Everything you sought out there was always within you, merely awaiting your recognition. Awakening is not a destination. It is a remembrance. You are not moving towards the light. You are the light itself shining anew. You look around and believe that destiny is a roulette wheel, that random events accumulate and decide the course of life. But I tell you with all authority, there is no luck, no chance, no whim of external forces casting your paths to the wind. What you are experiencing now at this very moment is merely the echo of a decree already made within you, often without realizing it. Life is like a faithful mirror that invents nothing on its own. It merely reflects, with absolute precision, what consciousness has delivered to it as a model. And that is why a single word, when understood and used with conviction, can completely transform your reality in a matter of hours. The word is Amen. But not as you have been using it, as a formal period at the end of your prayers. Amen is not a farewell. It is not a religious formula. It is not an empty ritual. Amen is a seal. It is the invisible signature that closes doubt and opens certainty. It is the final hammer blow that drives the decree into the invisible. So it is confirmed, it has already happened. You pronounce it without thinking, but within it lies an ancient and unbreakable law. Everything sealed with Amen must manifest. Not because the external world wills it, but because the invisible has already accepted it as fact. Imagine a contract being signed in front of witnesses. When the pen touches the paper and the signature is made, no one discusses whether it will happen. It is signed. It is sealed. It is only a matter of time before the effects are felt. The same occurs with the conscious use of Amen. You can no longer use this word as if closing a lifeless prayer. You must use it as if stamping approval on your desired reality. If your heart asks for prosperity, do not say maybe someday. If the natural mind demands proof, do not engage in debates. Simply declare Amen. And there, at that instant, invisible life moves to organize the threads of reality in favor of what has been sealed. You need to understand that the natural mind is like a restless child, always asking for signs, always asking, has it arrived? Is it coming? But every time you say Amen, you silence it. You say, it is done. Ask me no more. This is the key to attracting within 24 hours what once seemed distant, because the universe cannot resist a decree sealed with conviction. It has no choice. It must obey the internal state that has already been affirmed. Do not treat Amen as an empty sound. Treat it as a sword. Each time you pronounce it silently or in a low voice, you are engraving into the invisible the certainty that what you desire already belongs to you. And when this is done consciously, the mind begins to change its stance. The body reacts. You move as one who already possesses. And in this state, everything accelerates, everything approaches, everything bows to the decree. You were not born to beg. You did not come to earth to implore external forces to decide for you. You came to decree. The power was given to you, but many waste it with doubts, with prayers of despair, with weightless words. Use Amen as a seal. Say Amen and let life do the rest. You will see money, opportunities, and miracles arrive unexpectedly, because the invisible cannot withstand the firmness of one who has already confirmed their inheritance. Amen is not the end. Amen is the beginning of manifestation. It is the certification that the work is already complete, even if human eyes do not see it. And from this moment, if you have the courage to seal your desires with this word and do not retreat, you will see within 24 hours that the external world bows to the internal decree. And when that happens, you will never again live as victims. You will live as creators. How many times have you found yourself surrounded by thoughts of doubt? It's as if an insistent, cruel inner voice tries to sabotage every confident step you take. You decide to believe you can prosper, but then comes the whisper. What if it doesn't work out? What if it's just imagination? What if you're deceiving yourself? This battle is not against people, nor against external circumstances. This war happens within you, and it is the natural mind trying to tie you to the old state, the state of limitation. It doesn't easily accept a new vision because it has been conditioned to trust only what the eyes see and what the senses prove. But it is precisely at this point that the word I give you becomes an invincible weapon. Amen. When doubt appears, most people tend to argue with it. The mind begins to question, and you respond by trying to explain, trying to convince, trying to bring logic to what is spiritual. And the more you argue, the more strength you give to the thought that should be silenced. The secret is not to argue, the secret is to seal. Instead of spending energy justifying why you believe, simply end the conversation with a decree. Amen. This word has the power to close the door, like someone locking a dark room so that nothing else can emerge from it. It cuts the cycle of doubt and establishes that what has been assumed is already confirmed. Consider this. You desire prosperity. The apparent reality is one of scarcity, perhaps even accumulated bills. You look at your bank balance and your mind screams, "It is impossible to change this quickly, there's no way." Normally you would try to think positive, or search for proof that it's possible, but the path is different. To each accusation from the mind, you respond internally. Amen. So it is. It is already signed in the invisible. There is no more room for negotiation. You don't argue with the bank, you don't argue with logic. You seal it like someone striking the gavel in court and closing the case. This conscious use of Amen tricks the natural mind because it expects a justification. It wants you to show it external proof to shut it up. But when you surprise it with a definitive answer, without explanation, just the seal, it no longer finds fertile ground. It loses its strength, and at that instant, your energy, which was previously wasted in internal discussions, begins to be used to sustain the vision of what you desire. The silence that Amen generates within is the space where the miracle begins to manifest. Imagine a person signing a sales contract. Before the signature, there are questions, doubts, negotiations, but the moment the pen marks the paper and the signature is made, it's over. There's no more conversation. It is signed. This is exactly how Amen works in the practice of imagination. Doubt may persist, but you have already stamped it. Amen. The invisible contract has been affirmed. The mind may even grumble, but it no longer has the power to change what has been sealed. And here is what few understand. The speed of manifestation depends on the firmness with which you seal your thoughts. Those who debate with doubt prolong the process. Those who immediately close the door with the seal of Amen shorten the path. That is why many things move in 24 hours. Because you did not allow the natural mind to grow roots of uncertainty. You did not feed the wavering. You simply sealed it, and the invisible, which is obedient, immediately began to work to align circumstances. So the next time doubt comes, don't explain, don't argue, don't plead. Respond only with the seal. Say internally, Amen. And remain silent, knowing that what has been sealed already is. This is the first move of authority, learning to end the conversation with the natural mind and not giving it the power to dictate your experience. Because where Amen exists, doubt no longer exists. And where there is no doubt, the miracle finds a swift path to manifest. Have you ever noticed that you often repeat beautiful words, affirmations, and even prayers, but feel that nothing truly changes? It's because the mind isn't convinced by sounds alone. It needs to be tricked by vivid images. Saying you believe in prosperity while inwardly seeing yourself in lack is like planting a seed in dry soil. No root can survive. The word Amen only reveals its strength when associated with a concrete inner vision. It's not enough to pronounce it. You must seal something that can already be seen within you. Close your eyes for an instant and see yourself exactly as you wish to be. See the bank statement with high figures. Imagine the deposit notification arriving on your phone. Feel your hands counting cash. Hear the sound of notes moving between your fingers. Don't imagine as someone watching a distant film. See yourself as the protagonist. Allow the scene to be so real in your mind that your body begins to react. Your heart accelerates, a smile appears, your breathing changes. It is at this moment that you declare internally, Amen. This word seals the scene and transforms it into fact. It is no longer in the realm of maybe someday, but in the domain of certainty. The common error is to use Amen automatically, as if it were just a period. But the true power lies in connecting it to a clear image, so strong that the natural mind cannot distinguish whether it is a memory or imagination. It simply accepts, and once accepted, it begins to organize the external world to correspond. The natural mind is limited, but imagination is infinite. When you seal a scene with Amen, there is no turning back. The decree has already been registered in the invisible. Many will say, but I tried to visualize and felt nothing. That's because they were forcing it. It's not about effort, but about surrender. Let the scene come gently, even if simple. You signing a contract, receiving a message, paying a bill without worry. And when this scene arises, however small, declare Amen. Feel that it is signed. This simplicity is what cuts the cycle of doubt. Each image sealed with Amen is like a seed planted in the invisible garden. Some germinate in minutes, others in hours, but all are destined to sprout because they were watered with certainty. And what accelerates the process is precisely conscious repetition. Each time the scene returns, each time you seal it again, you are fertilizing, reinforcing, deepening the root of manifestation. Therefore, do not limit the word to cold repetition. Use it as the hammer that fixes the vision in the inner world. See, feel, and then declare, Amen. If you do this, you will not just be saying a word, but signing a sentence in the court of the invisible. And such a sentence cannot be annulled. It must be fulfilled in the visible world. It is almost inevitable. After sealing a desire within yourself, the natural mind begins to look around for proof. You find yourself repeating, has anything changed? Is it coming already? Is it really going to happen? This impulse is the reflection of a consciousness still dependent on the external world. But here is the truth that few accept. Signs only appear after the inner seal, never before. The reflection does not anticipate the mirror's movement. First you assume within, then life reflects it externally. This is one of the biggest mistakes that delay manifestation. One says Amen in the morning, and by evening is already testing reality to see if there has been any response, like someone planting a seed and digging up the earth every hour to see if the root has sprouted. This behavior kills the process. The invisible does not move to prove to you that it is working. It moves to reflect the firm stance of one who no longer needs proof. When you seal inwardly, it's like signing a document. The signature already guarantees the contract, even before delivery. You don't beg the registry office to show you it's registered, you know. And this certainty is what opens the way for changes to appear quickly. Amen works exactly like this. It closes the case before your eyes can see any evidence. When you say Amen, you are affirming that you do not depend on signs to believe. You are decreeing that the invisible has already accepted the request, and that the visible world will merely follow the inevitable script. He who understands this stops monitoring circumstances and begins to monitor only their inner posture. Think of someone who needs money and seals their vision of abundance with Amen. If an unexpected bill appears the same day, the natural reaction would be to say, see, nothing has changed. But this is the test. This is the moment to remain unshakable and respond, Amen, it is already paid. Because what matters is not the external sign, but the internal seal. The external world is slow, dense. It needs time to reorganize itself. The invisible is instantaneous. The moment you seal, it is already done. The visible merely needs to align with the decree. The secret, therefore, is not to watch the world for indications. The secret is to rest in the seal. It is like trusting a package that has already been mailed. You done to see the package, but you know it's on its way because you received confirmation. Amen is that confirmation. Those who rush to seek signs demonstrate that they have not truly sealed. But those who seal and rest invariably see the miracle materialize in a few hours or days. Therefore, when the mind begins to press for proof, silence it firmly. Declare, Amen, and proceed as one who already possesses. This is true faith, not looking outward, but remaining unshakable within. And the result is inevitable. Sooner or later, and often in less than 24 hours, the external world will bow its knee before what was affirmed in your imagination. Have you noticed how the world always seems to want to strip away the confidence you've just embraced? Just decide you're going to prosper, and someone will come talking about a crisis. Just seal a vision of abundance, and an unexpected bill knocks at your door. The old state always tries to call your attention back. It is at this moment that most falter, because they let the external dictate the tone of the internal. But here is the key. Amen is not just a word to use in silence after visualizing. It is also a living response that needs to accompany every step of your day. When someone tells you it's difficult, the economy is broken, you don't need to debate or try to prove anything. Just declare internally, Amen to my abundance. This response cuts the root of external suggestion and keeps you firm in your state. When an unexpected bill appears, instead of being filled with fear and feeling defeated, respond inwardly. Amen, it is already paid. The visible world thinks it can force you to bow, but it doesn't realize that you carry within you a word that ends any threat. Each time you use Amen in this way, you are driving invisible stakes of certainty. It's like hammering a tent into firm ground. Each blow fixes it deeper until nothing can knock it down. The daily Amen is that hammer. It prevents you from being swept away by news, opinions, momentary circumstances. It is the word that transforms every external attack into an internal confirmation. Because every time you seal again, you affirm that the visible does not command you. It merely obeys. Understand that the most subtle enemy is the repetition of the environment. Hearing about crisis every day, seeing bills every day, it is natural to believe that this is your destiny. But when you bring Amen into every situation, you create a new habit, a new reflex. The mind begins to get used to responding with certainty, not despair. And this conditioning changes your vibration, changes your posture, changes your harvest. The invisible finds free passage because there are no more interruptions of doubt. This active use of Amen during the day is the most practical way to trick the natural mind. You catch it by surprise, not allowing it to build stories of fear. You cut the narrative before it grows, and in this silence, this cut, the decree is free to operate. Therefore, do not reserve Amen only for moments of prayer or imagination. Bring it into your routine. Use it as a shield and a sword. Every thought of scarcity, every word of crisis, every bill that tries to haunt you must be answered with this seal. Make this a natural reflex, and you will see how life begins to adjust quickly. Because a mind that responds with Amen in every situation is a mind that does not negotiate with doubt. And faced with this firmness, the world has no choice. It must bow and deliver exactly what you have already confirmed. To live as one who has already sealed everything is to definitively abandon the posture of someone who asks, pleads, or waits for signs to then believe. It is to assume the position of one who has already signed an irrevocable contract in the invisible and now simply enjoys the certainty that the world has no choice but to comply. Many still use the word Amen as a timid plea to heaven, but the true power lies in transforming it into the final seal of all things. After declaring Amen, you do not continue to beg for the same desire. Just as no one who has already signed a valid document returns to the registry office to ask for new confirmation, once sealed, it is done. The role of faith is to live as one who has already received. This means walking, speaking, and reacting as one who already has what they asked for. If you sealed abundance, do not speak like a poor person. Do not react like one who lives at the mercy of luck. Every gesture must carry the posture of one who already possesses. When your senses scream that nothing has changed, remember, the mirror takes an instant to reflect the movement, but it cannot fail. The invisible is immediate. The visible merely follows with a delay. Your role is not to monitor the delay, but to sustain the seal. Here is a point few understand. Living as one who has already sealed means no longer negotiating with the natural mind. When it tries to raise doubts, you don't argue, you don't explain, you don't pray again. You simply rest in Amen. And resting doesn't mean doing nothing, but acting in the world with the confidence of one who already is. You pay a bill as one who knows there will be more provision. You go to work or to a negotiation as one who already carries victory. You respond to circumstances with serenity because you have already decreed the end of the story. This is the courage that transforms the atmosphere around you in 24 hours. The invisible moves quickly when it finds someone who no longer asks, but commands. And Amen is the silent command that cannot be reversed. Therefore, do not allow yourself to go back. Once the seal has been given, remain. Your posture is proof that you truly believed. He who continues to beg demonstrates that he signed nothing. He who seals and rests manifests. So the call is this: live as kings who have already issued their decree. Do not beg for approval. Do not wait for signs. Do not let yourselves be swayed by appearances. Everything is already written in the invisible, and the seal that guarantees it is simple and definitive. Amen. Each time you doubt, remember what has already been stamped. Each step you take it as one who already possesses. It is in this state that life bows, doors open, and money, opportunities, and miracles arrive so naturally that they will seem like coincidences. But you will know it was not by chance, it was the reflection of the seal. Everything you have heard so far points to a single truth. Life does not happen from the outside in, but from the inside out. The visible world is merely an echo, an inevitable reflection of what has been silently assumed in the heart. And the word I give you, Amen, is not a religious ornament, but the invisible seal that closes doubt and gives order to the invisible to manifest. When used consciously, it silences the natural mind, associates itself with vivid images of abundance, cuts off the need for signs, transforms into a firm response in the face of circumstances, and establishes the posture of one who already possesses. You are no longer authorized to live as beggars of life, imploring for external changes. That posture needs to die today. The call is to live as creators, as kings who decree with authority and rest in the certainty of the decree. Use Amen as the final hammer blow that seals what you desire. Use it to cut the cycle of doubt, to engrave the desired scene into the invisible, to respond to the provocations of the external world, and to walk as one who already has. From now on, every true desire that arises within you should not be treated with uncertainty, but sealed immediately with this word. Do not allow the natural mind to drag you back to wavering. The power lies in remaining firm in the seal, because what is affirmed in the invisible must by law manifest in the visible. So rise up, stop waiting for signs and begging for answers. Open your mouth, declare within yourself with conviction, and make Amen the irrevocable sentence of your life. Because when you seal in this way, the universe has no alternative. It bows, it obeys, it delivers. And you will see in less than a day that what seemed impossible was already written, already guaranteed, already alive within you. Amen is not the end. Amen is the beginning of manifestation,